All right, as I have said and written, and I'm not alone, Biden's presidency appears to be unraveling both externally in the public and even internally in terms of inside the White House and those goings-on. Joining us to talk about it, Katie Pavlich, editor of townhall.com and Fox News contributor, and Guy Benson, host of the Guy Benson radio show and Fox News contributor. Kids, welcome back. Katie, I'll begin with you. I mean, you know, one can hardly count the ways in which the Biden presidency has failed. And this whole inflation thing, I mean, I haven't talked to you since this inflation offensive and since Janet Yellen's hostage video is what we're calling it. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. What do you think about that? Is he persuading America that he's not the inflation problem?
Not at all. If anything, Americans are looking at their excuses and their year-late response and thinking, how is it that these people are in charge? We're going to get out in November and change leadership in Washington. You know, if you look back at the beginning of the Biden administration, Joe Biden and Democrats took a big risk with a split Senate and a very small majority in the House. They decided they wanted Joe Biden to be this transformational president. They were going to push through all of these big policy initiatives. They pushed through that $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan, which of course started this inflation to get out of control. And then at the end of the year, they continued to push the $6 trillion Build Back Better agenda, which failed. So that's when Joe Biden essentially became a lame duck president. Now he's reaping the rewards or the consequences, so to speak, of the $1.9 trillion package that he spent. And instead of addressing this issue last summer, they went through a whole host of stages of saying inflation wasn't happening, that it was transitory, that it was a good thing, it was a high-class problem. And now, summer 2022, around 4th of July now, we're hearing that the president is now focusing on this issue. But unfortunately for Democrats, inflation is like a runaway freight train. It doesn't really stop until there's a big crash. And that's what it looks like is going to happen with the economy.
Yeah, indeed. You know, Guy Benson, it's just, I find it very annoying. But I think Americans see through it. Biden says today, with his presser about the jobs report, that he wants to, essentially, I'm paraphrasing, he wants to be honest with the American people about the root causes of inflation. And then he goes ahead and blames, Vladimir Putin. And in fact, when Janet Yellen was on her apology tour and other people in the White House, yeah, they're going to be completely brutally honest with us. It's all about Vladimir Putin. And so, you heard Katie. Katie's view is akin to my view. I mean, do you think people buy this inflation offensive that they're launching, that it really was never their problem? And, oh, by the way, he's cutting the deficit and doing this and doing that. Is that going to turn his political fortunes around?
No, they're not buying it because the polls show his approval rating on the economy is in the toilet, and his approval rating on inflation is even worse, right? His disapproval on those issues are 2/3 to 70%, and more words aren't going to change anything. The words mean nothing. They're hollow. They're empty. They're excuses. If they wanted to be more contrite and actually finally start telling the truth, yeah, they could talk about Putin and a few other factors that are beyond their control, but they could also cop to the things that are within their control that they did and that they got wrong and that were harmful. And what really bothers me, I guess it doesn't bother me that much because it's not working, is you keep seeing these reports about how they're working to change their messaging strategy, and Biden's frustrated about the messaging. He doesn't have a messaging problem. He has a reality problem. He has an outcomes problem. And tweaking just slightly the way he talks about it or the venues in which he talks about it, that's not going to do much. That's rearranging, the deck chairs on the Titanic type mentality. And what does bother me, though, Larry, is the refrain that we hear over and over again from the White House press secretary, from the president himself, from some of the other apologists, is the things that are out of their control were totally unpredictable, and therefore the problem was completely unpredictable, so it's not really fair to blame them. That's wrong, because some of the problems were not only predictable, they were predicted. They were predicted by even people in their own party, like Larry Summers. You can't say, oh gosh, all this stuff came raining down on us like, like the plagues, in Egypt, and we had no idea any of this was going to come. You had Larry Summers writing very clearly with the clarion call last year, a long time ago,
Oh, yeah.
hey, don't keep doing this. This is a problem. This is going to get worse. And they explicitly rejected those warnings. You can't then turn around and say, no one could have warned. He did warn. You ignored it.
You know, Katie, I'm going to give you the last word. There may be a communications problem, okay? There may be a personnel problem. But what's most, first and foremost, whether it's foreign policy or economic policy or cultural, social policy or border policy, they have a policy problem, Katie Pavlich. They're barking up the wrong progressive tree, and this stuff's not working. And the public is saying, we don't want any more. I'm going to give you the last word on this. They can communicate bad stuff as much as they want, but it's still bad stuff.
Well, they have a philosophy problem. They have a far-left economic philosophy. The National Economic Council is stacked with socialists who have an economic philosophy that's closer to Bernie Sanders than it is to Larry Summers. That is not going to change. Biden apparently is going to shake up his West Wing staff and bring in Anita Dunn, who is not, closer to Larry Summers on these issues. She's closer to the far left of the party. And so it's almost like they see the writing on the wall in November, looking at the poll numbers of not just the president, but also Democrats across the country. And they're saying, look, we might as well just continue doing what we can and pushing through this agenda because the left is holding us hostage because there's no way that we can make up for any ground between now and the election. So, it's a personnel problem as well, in addition to a policy problem.
I thought you were going to say the NEC is not bringing people closer to Larry Kudlow.
That's true. That's true, too.
Also,
they could use your
joke.
help.
Gotcha.
They could really use your help, Larry.
Katie Pavlich and Guy Benson.
We'd be
Thank
better
you,
off.
kids. Absolutely terrific stuff.